So, if you wish to master your mind game to get your career goals and ace up your LinkedIn game with a killer resume, and if you want LinkedIn recruiters coming after you, hunting you for a job, and if you're someone who wants a career change even during menopause, and you wish to find out proven strategies for your midlife career transitions, this is the episode for you. Welcome to Luxury Unplugged podcast, where we dive into the art of living a successful and luxurious life. From the mindset and business to personal growth and entrepreneurship, I discuss everything with my superb guests. And today we have an amazing topic on LinkedIn strategies, on career coaching, because we have with us Wendy Alexander. She is a seasoned career coach with a unique focus on guiding midlife professionals, especially menopausal women. And we are often, thinking about our career transitions, but she's going to guide us, help us through various strategies. Let's hear it out from Wendy. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Hello there. Nice to be here.
Lovely to have you. And we have so many questions brimming within us for the career transitions and so many aspects on LinkedIn. And I hope you will throw amazing light on all of those questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ask whatever you need to know. I'll answer as best I can.
Right. So, just to give a perspective, a little perspective to our audiences, what your story has been is truly fascinating because I know about your situation and your story, what went behind, but a lot of our people don't. So, why don't you let us understand what kind of apartheid situations you went through in South Africa and what sort of challenges life threw at you and how did you overcome them? Especially from being a single mom to heavy mortgages to actually climbing the corporate ladder. How was it for you?
Okay, so the journey started with the challenge of growing up in Cape Town in South Africa. And I grew up in that country during the time of apartheid. So anyone who knows anything about apartheid, you can probably liken it to the civil rights movement that happened in the South of America in the 60s and early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about segregation. And it was about segregation by color of skin. So the country was segregated by law. So this was entrenched in the law, divided by blacks, colored, which is what I am, because I have mixed race. I have some white grandparents and some black grandparents. So I was classified as colored. And then, of course, the white group. Now, the white population was the minority population, but they were the population that had the wealth and the power. And so there was a lot of oppression and suppression in South Africa during the time of apartheid, which ran, the timeline of apartheid ran from 1948 to 1994, when Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa after he was released from 27 years imprisonment. So, he was a political activist. He was imprisoned for fighting back against the government. I saw a lot of that growing up because I became a political activist myself in my teen years. Once I realized what was going on in the country. So I didn't always know that I was colored and that meant certain things about me in that country. Because when you're a child, you don't see that. You grow up in your community, you see your neighbors, you see your friends, you see your cousins, your family. We all grew up in similar neighborhoods, so we never really knew any different. Until I think I was 7 years old, we went to the beach one summer. It was a whites only beach. We didn't know it was a whites only beach, and we were thrown off the beach. There was 2 families that went. That was my first introduction to segregation. So it was a lot to overcome. It was, and then once I started to ask, because the moment that happened, that was when I was a naturally curious child, much to my parents' annoyance, because I was always asking, why did this happen? And so I wanted to know, why did they throw us off the beach? And my father, in the comfort and the safety of our home, started to explain to me what the country was about, that it was actually a segregated country, that people who were black lived in those neighborhoods, people who were colored lived in these neighborhoods, and people who were white lived in those neighborhoods. and you weren't allowed to go into each other's neighborhoods. You weren't allowed to go into cinemas that weren't designated for you, beaches that weren't designated for you, trains, buses, public transport, you name it, restaurants, everything. So, but at 7 years old, you're not old enough to process it properly. But as I grew up, I definitely saw it everywhere. And I myself had the challenging experiences of being put off trains. One time I was in high school, I was late. My connecting bus to the train was late. So I was late and I was like, God, I don't want to get detention. So I just jumped into the first carriage and it was a whites only carriage. So I was put off the train at the next station and ended up being late anyway. So that was one example, but there was many like that. That was life in South Africa. And one of the things my father drilled into us was, you need to get your education because you're a person of color. And he said to me, you're a woman of color. So you're going to have some challenges stacked against you to try and get the kind of jobs that might lead to success and so on. So I knew from the start that I had a few things stacked against me growing up in that country. My parents had, in the meantime, been trying for a number of years to leave South Africa. And then they had the big riots. Schools were closed in 1985, which was my year of matriculation. And so we had to write schools were closed, but we still had to write the matriculation exam to pass high school with no teaching. Now, I mean, look, there was a lot of clandestine activity that happened. So people snuck to teachers' homes and the teachers taught us from their homes and so on. Prepared us. I ended up writing my exams in a military base surrounded by guns and soldiers. So that was traumatic because, anything could happen. Violence erupts and people open fire. That happened a lot in South Africa. A lot of people died in the struggle. But I managed to get through that. I also applied for a scholarship because my parents couldn't afford to send me to university. That wasn't a possibility in our family and for a lot of Black families and a lot of colored families. And I won the scholarship to go to the University of Cape Town and did my first year of university there. And then we migrated to Australia in my second year of uni. So I was almost 21 years old when we came to Australia. That had its challenges because suddenly we had this freedom that we didn't have in South Africa, right? We had this freedom and we didn't know how to be with that freedom. Like for example, one time my cousin was going into the city and I said, okay, can I come with you? And she said, yes. So we went on the train and I said, which carriage am I supposed to get into? And she said, you're not in South Africa anymore. You're in Australia. You can get on any carriage, And so the mindset took a while to shed that life that I'd lived there. But I suppose where the start of the career changes and the wanting success. Look, I had won that scholarship in South Africa. I got a great university education up until we migrated and then came to Australia and completed my degree here in Australia. And obviously there was a lot more opportunity for me here because I wasn't restricted by all that race issues. And so I went on to do well, landed my first job in a bank. There was a traumatic experience there with the bank robbery and being held up at gunpoint and things like that. But I got through that as well. But through that thread of my life, I was constantly aware that, if I wanted to succeed, I had to put in the effort, work hard. I then ended up in a relationship, and that was another huge challenge. Mm-hmm. So that relationship ended when I was 4 months pregnant with my daughter. There was domestic violence in that relationship. I got out of that and suddenly I lose everything. I had worked 3 jobs to buy a house. We had a home together, him and I. We were about to have a child together and then relationship ends. I'm 4 months pregnant. The house sells at a loss. He walks away, leaves me with a debt. So I'm starting a life with a baby in my belly and $50,000 worth of debt.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that was when one of the first things I did was put myself in counseling, because I was like, how the heck did I create this mess in my life? So
Right.
that was me taking responsibility for myself. I was an emotional and financial mess. And I was like, how do I come through it? So I put myself in counseling. And this is the thing, sometimes we have to take action steps
Yeah, I think this is a
to
very important point that you have mentioned, that that you did very carefully for your career. You put yourself into counseling. When a lot of people, a lot of women in India do not go through counseling even after going through domestic violence and stuff like that in their marriages. And I think there's a huge requirement for such kind of a career counseling.
Oh, absolutely.
In
Look,
fact,
I think not just so, it's career counseling, but also you need to go through some kind of emotional healing. And so sometimes you need a psychologist, you know,
yeah.
or you might need a spiritual counselor, someone that can help you heal from the trauma of whatever you've been through.
Hmm.
And
So,
I did recognize that I needed that. So the first lot of counseling I put myself through was psychological counseling. Then I started to reach out to recruiters and hiring people, because I'm sitting with this massive debt over my head. I've just given birth to a baby, and I'm going, how do I give this child a new life? How do I give her a great life? And for me at the time, it was very practical. So it was like I did my numbers. It's like, this is the debt I have. This is the income I'm on. If I'm going to pay this debt down in the next 2 years, I need to be on this income. And in my head, the numbers in my little spreadsheet showed me I needed to make $20,000 more a year. But I'm like, who's going to give me that kind of opportunity?
right.
So I decided, well, the people that make the decisions are recruiters or hiring people. So I went to them. And I said, I need to do this with my career. How do I do it? Now, I will say most people were incredibly generous. I was very authentic. I told people my circumstances. I told them I was a single mom with this big debt. I was trying to grow in my career. I was trying to improve myself. Didn't hide anything. And so I don't know if that's why, if human beings are naturally empathetic, and they helped me. Recruiters would sit down with me. I'd buy them a coffee, because that was all I could afford. I couldn't afford to take them out for lunch. So I would go, can I buy you a coffee? Buy them a coffee and pick their brains. In the meanwhile, I also was writing, testing out my resume. So I've always been a wordsmith. It's one of the ways I got through difficult times in life. I wrote my way. I journaled my way. I wrote little stories. I wrote poetry. It helped me process my emotions. So I had the ability to use words. So I started playing with words
So I think
with my resume.
this is another
Sorry.
this is another important point. Journaling is a very, very important spiritual technique that even we talk about on our channel on Luxury Unplugged, because it really helps you to calm down, to take out your negative emotions, and just clear the mess inside your head and bring out that it's all brushed out, and now is the time to focus on the real thing. And I guess
That's right.
you were guided.
Absolutely. I always, for me, when I couldn't make sense of South Africa, I would write things out, and I would write all my feelings out. And what it did was it took all that confusion out of my own mind and my own spirit and put it down on paper.
Mhm.
And then I could read back on things later and start to see patterns and try to make sense of things. So for me, journaling was a natural thing. It came when I was really young. I did it all of my life. I still do it to this day. It's my way of processing. So yes, I highly recommend that if you're trying to process your own emotions, your own thoughts, the best thing to do is to get it out of here and onto paper, because when you read back at it, you'll start to be able to see certain threads and patterns and be able to figure out, okay, I'm noticing this kind of negative thought popping up all the time. But I'm also noticing that sometimes I get this burst of inspiration and there's a slight solution to the problem. And then you can zone in on the solution. So anyway, the writing was always a part of my life. So I started playing with my resume. And then and then I was working parallel to playing around with my resume. I was talking to all these recruiters and these hiring people, and combined the two into a framework that I then started to test out. So what I did was I started sending the resume out, written the way recruiters guided me and helped me and told me what to focus on. And it took 6 months before I got a bite that was promising. And I landed an interview. I didn't get the job. However, as I was walking out of the interview, I said, can you give me 2 or 3 points on what I could do better? And they were generous too. They gave me the feedback. So I was like, okay, I didn't perform well there, and there. So I was, and this is the thing, you've got to seek feedback. You got to, don't just accept defeat. Don't just accept that something didn't work out for you. If you're able to, go and ask why. Because then they're going to give you some pointers, and then you go, okay, I need to practice that a little bit better next time. And probably about 2 weeks later, I landed another interview, and I landed the job because I had refined my answers. I practiced and practiced. I mean, I was talking to myself in the mirror. I was talking to the baby, baby's gurgling in the cot, and I'm practicing. It didn't matter. It was like, there's something for me to talk to, and I'm going to practice and practice these answers. And I ended up getting the job, and the job exceeded my expectations. It launched my income by a $50,000 increase. My number was 20, and that was really the start for me. I saw a system that worked. I had refined it. People around me knew my story. My family, my friends, my colleagues knew what I'd been through, knew the trauma I'd been through, knew I'd lost my home, knew the debt they knew everything. I'm a fairly open book. And so they were like, how did you go from there to there? In the space of, it was about 7 months that happened. And they said, can you help me? And that's how my business was born. I started to help my friends, my family, my colleagues with some of the systems that I was using to succeed in my own career. And then eventually it turned into a part-time business. So I had landed a big role in corporate, and I had a debt to pay. So I didn't abandon corporate. I worked probably not that back then, 8, 9 hours, 10 hours a day in corporate. And I ran my coaching business on the side.
And this happened for a couple of years?
For a few years. Yeah, absolutely. And then the side, look, I really loved seeing people succeed in their careers. And the more I was succeeding, every time I was learning a different strategy or was climbing the corporate ladder in a better way, I would teach the people coming up behind me the same thing. And they were having their own success. So my career coaching business has been around now it was 15 years part-time, and it's now 5 years full-time. So 20-year business, but very much a side gig business for a long time until recently. So where it changed was when I went through menopause. When menopause hit me, midlife hit me, that was another big challenge for me.
So then you would have already stepped into your business before the menopause hit you.
No. So I actually made the decision to do the business full time when I was probably in the second year of perimenopause, because it slammed me really hard. I was one of those women that had the insomnia, got the hot flashes, brain fog, every symptom that menopausal women can go through. I had all of them. And it caused me severe stress. And then I was still in a high-powered role. So between the stress of the body changes and the mental changes that comes with menopause, there was also the very high responsibility in my job. And the two lots of stresses were not working for me anymore.
So definitely there are some challenges that midlife professionals anyways go through, especially if they're in a really high position. But how did you manage the balancing act for a baby, not a baby anymore, but a single mom that you were, and the menopausal symptoms and the position and the budding business?
Well, I think that was really the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter was that I could see clearly that I wasn't managing it very well anymore because I was becoming very unwell. I was not sleeping because the insomnia, some women get severe insomnia with menopause. I was one of those women. As our estrogen levels drop, brain fog sets in, insomnia sets in, all kinds of things happen. Now, some women don't go through those symptoms. They're very fortunate, but most women do. They
Mhm.
either get one or two of the symptoms or they get all of the symptoms. And it does affect life in so many ways. So, yes, my daughter was in the late teenage years then. I had a new partner, so I was managing a relationship. I was running a part-time business and I was working high-powered role in corporate, right? Managing teams of people. And I was like, I'm not doing any of my various roles that I had in my life. I'm not doing any of it any justice because I'm exhausted and I'm sick all the time. Um, and so I looked at it and I thought, well, so that was when I went through. I have a process that's a free resource that I provide people with now. But I went through a process of what I call mining my story. And what that meant was I went through my life and looked at where I felt a sense of joy doing whatever I was doing. If I was doing something, did it bring me a sense of joy? And I noticed two threads flowing through my life. One of it was writing. Every time I was writing, I was happy. That was just a natural thing. It brought me so much joy. The other one was helping people. So even when I was a teenager growing up in South Africa in very difficult times, I was working with people with disabilities. I was volunteering at homeless shelters. So I noticed there was that thread to always want to make a difference and help people. And so I suppose I combined the two threads. I was like, I already have evidence that I can help people with their careers because I am. And I can help myself. I've helped myself with my career. I've helped other people with career. And I have evidence that I'm a half decent writer, that when I write people's resumes, LinkedIn's and things for them, they tend to land the interviews, right? Once I start rebranding them or telling their story in a way that makes them shine, I was like, okay, so there's two little threads. And I combined it. And that's when I took the writing business, which was because I was mostly writing resumes, and the ability to help people interview and coach them. And I combined it and it became a career coaching business.
Mhm.
And that happened in my second year of perimenopause because I had a look at it and I was like, I need to give something up. And I chose to give up corporate. Now, I had a lot of opinions around me about that because I was making a lot of money in corporate. I was in a very high paying job. People are like, you're stupid. Why would you give up this high pay? Well, the high paying job is causing me the most stress because when you get paid that kind of money, you have to deliver. You're responsible for a lot. I was responsible for project budgets that were into the 100, 200 million, and I'm leading teams of indirect reports of 35 in one team, 35 in another, 10 direct reports, a huge responsibility. And I was like, you know what, this is the one that is causing me the most stress. And I have something that I can transition into. But it wasn't the easiest choice to make because it's nice to have steady, high-paying income. When you start to run your own business full-time, you also have to market your business. You've got to get up there and get yourself out in the world and be known. And, what we did, my partner and I, because my life partner is also my business partner, we did start really working LinkedIn big time.
So tell me something over here. You talk about menopausal challenges, but I see a lot of opportunity that you sort of created in your life during this time. So how did you see this
I
period?
can't hear you, Niti.
You can't? Okay. Can you hear me now? Hello?
There, better,
Yeah?
better.
So you talk
Yeah.
you talk about menopause and it's a time to pursue the life you've always wanted. How do you see this period of life as an opportunity rather than a barrier? Like, because I can see those things in your career. Despite all the challenges that you had, you still managed to go ahead with it, move around it, beyond it, and still get to what you wanted to do, right? So
Yes.
was it just the drive to give your child a better lifestyle, or was it your own hunger for success? Or how does somebody who is actually in so much of trauma really carve a path of a career change and really succeed in that?
Okay, so for me, I think it came from the very difficult years growing up in South Africa. One of the things that was instilled in me by my parents was choose your destiny and don't become a victim of your circumstances. So it was that. There was a warrior spirit that was instilled in all of us from very young. And so even though we grew up in difficult circumstances, one thing I will say, I have a lot of great memories of life in South Africa because the community, my parents, there was always music going on. There was always food celebrations. And so they were always looking for the silver lining, right? There were lots of clouds for sure, but they were always looking for the silver lining. And I think that was instilled in me as a young child and as a teenage girl and a young woman. And then when I when I came out of South Africa and was going through my own personal traumas, as in relationship traumas and financial traumas, I think that warrior spirit has always been there. But the most important thing was, for a long time, it was my daughter that drove a lot of my decisions, right? I was like, okay, I feel like crawling under the doona and never coming out again because I was in so much pain. But I did have a baby growing in my belly, and I was like, well, what are you going to do? And I also knew it was a girl. I intuitively knew it was a girl. It was confirmed when I had to go for an ultrasound. And so I knew prior to her birth and I was like, what example do I want to show my daughter? Do I want her to believe that life is limited for her? No, I don't. So the best way I can do that is for me to become the example. Because it's easy to go look at books and to look at other people, but you're the one that has to lead the way, especially for your own family or your children.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they're easily influenced by external forces, right? So that was a driving factor. But then also the big thing for me was I never wanted to be a victim of anything. All the violence I went through, all, the trauma I went through, all the failure of that relationship, the financial losses, I knew there was something in me that was, I'm never going to be a victim of difficult circumstances. I am going to be a victor of challenges. I'm going to overcome them. And so, but it wasn't always easy, and I didn't always know what to do.
Right.
What I figured out though, and here's a message for a lot of people and the people that I work with, but also for your audience, is take one action step. When you don't know what to do something. Because sitting around doing nothing means you're going to be continuing to sit around doing nothing, and you're always going to feel like you don't know what to do. So if you don't know what to do, take one action. Like with me, for example, okay, I got a $50,000 debt. What am I going to do? I don't know how to clear this debt. What I know is that I need to earn more money. How do I earn more money? I've got to go talk to the people that can tell me how I earn more money. So even though I was actually an introvert by nature, because writers usually are, we natural introverts. We love sitting with our pen and paper. We love a keyboard in a room, quiet room. We don't like being out in the world. But I was like, I have to step out of this box, this comfort zone, and I've got to go talk to those people who can help me. So that's what I did. And it was hard. Let me be honest and say it was hard. I was nervous and trembling when I made the first phone call to the first recruiter that I called and said, can I take you out for coffee? I have some questions. I was shaken doing it, but my whole livelihood and my daughter's livelihood and my circumstances that I wanted to overcome depended on me stepping into that very uncomfortable action.
Wow.
And so my message is always, and then the other thing is, once you take an action, you realize, okay, I've taken that action. The world didn't fall down. The sky didn't fall on top of me. I can take another action. And
So,
that's kind of how I build things, one little action step at a time.
so that's a big nugget, huh? One action,
Big nugget.
one action at a time. Only one
One action
small action, but one concrete action at a time.
at a time. I think people think that if they're going to change their life, they have to do these huge, major moves and steps. But from working with so many people over the years, and also doing it for myself throughout all the challenges that I've been through, I know that if you try and take on everything, you become overwhelmed and you actually stop, because the overwhelm will stop you. It will cripple you.
Absolutely.
But if you take one little step and you conquer that one little step, and then you go to the next one and the next one, before you know it, all the little steps that you're taking compound. And then suddenly the avalanche of success comes to you quicker than you can dream of or imagine. Like for me, when I look at making my first phone call to that recruiter and then landing that job that jumped my income by 50 grand, that was only 7 months time frame. But when I started, had no idea that it would be that quick.
Right, right. But tell me something, Wendy. Times have changed. Like what you faced in your initial career and what we have right now with social media and LinkedIn and so many other options. What do you suggest is a practical strategy? Yes, of course, it is about building personal connections and, having one-to-one meet with people. But what about the possibility of catching the right recruiter on LinkedIn and talking them through what is the right strategy for that?
Well, I think what I will say is that networking has never changed. So it was valuable when I was coming out. The way I got my opportunities was through networking, which was calling up these recruiters, calling up these hiring people. So that has never changed.
Mm-hmm.
And the big, juicy, prime, wonderful roles that pay the most money exist in the network. They do not exist on job portals. They're not even advertised, right?
Very true.
If you want the prime, juicy roles that are going to pay you a really great 6-figure income, sometimes for some people up to a 7-figure income, if you end up in those C-suite roles and you get all the shares and everything that go with it, that happens through the networks. Those roles are not advertised. They don't get to the job portals. It's about networking. You hear about it all the time. The deal on the golf course, the conversation over coffee, over a big lunch or a dinner or a football event or something, right? It's easier for people to build networks now than it was in my time. In my time, I had to make the phone call,
Mm-hmm.
or I had to go to the event. I had to go to the industry event, the meetup, attend a project management industry event, for example, and then meet all the people that were there, and the decision makers that were there. Now you have LinkedIn. People do not know, or if they know, they're not doing it. This is what I see. They have not taken advantage of that professional networking social place. It's so much easier now.
So what are your 3 nuggets, let's say, on LinkedIn, like to get a good of it? For somebody,
okay, so LinkedIn,
let's say for menopausal women, somebody who's through career transitions and trying to find the way, like you were in a situation earlier on, what would be the right strategy at this stage?
Okay, so first of all, so you do need to have a good resume. LinkedIn is not going to replace your resume, because LinkedIn is about social, professional branding. So you kind of have to have a really great story. You need to make sure your banners on LinkedIn, your background banner, your profile picture is appealing, right? Because people are drawn into the story of you. It's all about the branding. It's like you wanting to buy a BMW car. If you drive past a showroom and the showroom is tacky and not telling you much and not appealing, you're not stopping at that showroom. You're going to stop at the next one, or the third one, or the fourth one that's going to draw you in. LinkedIn's the same. You need to brand yourself so someone is drawn into your profile. Some of the key ways to do that is, do not use LinkedIn's default banner. You know, that little banner, sort of teal color with a little gray little squib. That tells someone nothing about you. That's about LinkedIn. That's not about you. So that's number one place where I see people can make one little change already. Put up a banner that says something about you, who you help, how you help them. If you don't know, you think, oh, I don't know how I want to represent myself. Do I want to represent myself in terms of my hobbies, what I'm interested in, or in terms of the work I do? If you're confused there, the best banner is a nature banner. Everybody loves that. If you put up a beautiful nature banner, people are drawn into it, right? So if you're someone that likes mountains, the ocean, whatever, put up a banner that represents that about you. Profile picture head on. Where you're going to make a difference is to start changing your headlines. So if you look at most LinkedIn profiles, they use their title as a headline. So project manager, business analyst, CEO. Okay, that's what you are, that's your title, but how do you actually help? A title, LinkedIn gives you 220 characters to write a compelling headline. And the headline should be sharp and succinct and tell them in that 220 characters how you help them, who you help and how you help them. Right? So if you look at my title, and I don't know it off by heart because I've changed it a number of times, but it says, I help midlife menopausal women or midlife careerists too. And how do I help them? Up-level their resume, ace their interviews, get to love Monday mornings again. That's a much stronger title than me just saying career coach.
Absolutely.
Because I'm actually telling people how I help them. And that can go across any title. Whether your project, you can be a PM that helps in a way where you up-level, you develop high-performing teams. You deliver projects within time and on budget. You're the kind of person that they want to work with again in the future. Something like that. You need to come up with titles that actually tell people how you help them. That's one difference where I've seen, once we start changing people's titles when I work with them, it makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
Because it's the first thing, it catches. You need to catch people's attention. Then your about section. So many people, this is, tip number 3, maybe even number 4 now, about section. People do this fact-telling exercise. I call it a fact-telling exercise. And what they do is they'll go, I'm a project manager and I do change management and risk management and this. Well, okay, most people know what certain job titles do. If you tell your story in a narrative, in a story style way, you're probably going to get a lot more traction. So what you want to probably do is give people a little bit of insight into how you started, why you still love what you do, and then weave a couple of your strongest achievements into that story. So people can see that you've had this passion for this particular thing that you're doing or that you want to do. Here's how you've already achieved in that space. And here's why you still want to continue to do this type of work. There's an old saying, I'm a copywriter as well. So I do copywriting for businesses, small businesses. And there's an old saying in copywriting that goes, facts tell, but stories sell.
Absolutely.
So you need to sell yourself through a story. Don't be boring, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Don't be that fact-telling person because nobody's going to be inspired by that.
Absolutely.
And then the other, another tip, which I'll give is you need to build recommendations on LinkedIn, right? People avoid it, but LinkedIn recommendations are trusted above all else because they can only be written by the person you ask the recommendation of. So for example, if I asked you to write me a recommendation, Niti, and you wrote me one, and maybe you didn't cover something that I want you to cover, I can't go into that recommendation and change it. I have to send it back to you and say, Niti, can you talk about this particular coaching style of mine in your recommendation? You have to then write it.
Absolutely.
All I can do with the recommendation is add it to my profile. I cannot change it. And so it's trusted. And so if you start building recommendations and testimonials there, people go. They go to your LinkedIn page and they go, wow, this person's, so many people really like working with this person, and this is what they got out of working with them, and so on. It is really important. It is very underutilized on LinkedIn, but it is one of the things I've seen make the most difference. And quite a number of hiring people, like the recruiters, the hiring people, they go to the LinkedIn, they scan that recommendation first, and then they go, oh, I don't even need to bring up someone for a reference. It's right here. There's 10 recommendations for this person, and they're all saying very similar things. This person's a team player. This person's a strong leader. This person's a collaborator, whatever, And so a lot of the time, you cutting work for a recruiter. If they can see that you are someone solid to work with just by your recommendations and how you've structured your LinkedIn branding, they're going to go, oh, well, I don't need to ring up a reference. All there for me. You have got to take ownership and steer the direction of your LinkedIn so that it sells you as a candidate. But you don't want to have it be too detailed, because you want to create the curiosity from LinkedIn so that the recruiter then reaches out and said, hey, John, hey, Mary, can you send me your resume? That's what you want them to do, to get so curious about you, so interested in you that they ask for your resume, which is where you're going to now be showcasing your solid achievements, your solid credentials.
Right.
And then, of course, you go from there. You lead on from there into an interview. I've seen LinkedIn make a massive difference. Clients who have argued with me, it's okay, I don't mind them arguing with me. They go, no, I'm not going to do LinkedIn, I don't like it, blah, blah, blah. And then I say to them, let's try it for a month. Let's shape this LinkedIn up and let's just try it for a month. Let's start to reach out, build your network. Let's build your recommendations. There's not one client who's done it who hasn't landed an opportunity from it so far.
No, absolutely.
So,
yes, you are the right person for LinkedIn coaching. But tell me something. So for listeners, for my audiences who are considering a career change and they're feeling uncertain, what is that one piece of advice that you'd like to give them for a career transition? What do you think is the right thing to do, first of all, or whatever, like 2-3 things that you'd like to talk about?
Okay. So the first thing, if you're wanting to make a career transition, if you've been in a certain industry all the years and you're bored with it, you hate it, you've got to midlife and you go, can't do this anymore. And that doesn't only happen to midlife women. It happens to us more so, but I've worked with midlife men who go, I paid the bills, put the kids through school, I want something different. One of the ways, the first thing you need to do is to identify your transferable skills, because you need to be able to offer the new industry you want to go into some kind of skill, right? Now, we all have transferable skills. Some of us have very job-specific skills, and that's fine. Like you have people with tech and AI and data analytics skills. Those are very specific. But everybody's got collaboration skills, problem-solving skills, leadership skills. People have stepped up, whether you've officially led a team or unofficially helped people along a journey, you have got leadership skills. You just need to know how to sell it and how to highlight it. And a lot of people struggle with highlighting their transferable skills. EQ skills is huge now. Every company is hiring for EQ skills, emotional intelligence skills. Huge. So if you start to really highlight your EQ skills, that's going to be a big difference, right? So you need to identify your transferable skills. Then I say to people, go and identify the top 20 companies, because you need to know why you're inspired by a particular company or why you're inspired by a certain type of job, right? And then you start to frame up, and here's where LinkedIn can help you. Once you've identified your top 20, you go and put that company name in LinkedIn. For example, you identify Microsoft is one of your top 20. You type in Microsoft. Underneath Microsoft is going to be a list of employees. Well, there's a whole lot of people to start building connections with. Look at people's titles going, okay, I need to form connections with some of the decision makers at Microsoft. If for example, this guy is the head of data analytics and I really want to work in data analytics. I need to form a connection. Now, you don't just go hit connect because the person doesn't know you, right? They're going to go, who is this person? What I encourage when I train people how to connect with people, it's like go into their profile. Take the time of reading the person's profile. If they're a person that posts regularly, start liking their posts, start sharing their posts, become visible to them through that. If they're not someone that posts a lot, have a read through their profile because they're going to list where they've worked, they're going to list what they like doing, find something that's a common ground and reach out to them. And that means you've got to go into their profile, you hit the connect button from their profile, not from that long list that just shows connect, connect, connect. The profile, the connect button within their profile will send you to a pop-up note, right? Pop-up note will allow you to send a personalized message. Always send a personalized message when you're wanting to connect with someone you don't know. Because if you don't, they will not accept your connection.
And even if it's going to be very much shallow. So
very shallow.
Yeah.
And people, if you take the trouble to, like most of the people whose connections I accept, they have either watched a video that I've put up on LinkedIn, they've read one of my posts, because I post daily. I'm offering free tips and advice daily in the form of articles and in the form of video. People reach out to me. The people whose connections I accept are the ones that say, hi, Wendy, I saw your video on how to ace this question in an interview. The moment I know they've looked at some of my work, boom, yes, I'm accepting you. And then they come back and they go, can you give me some advice? I'm going to help whoever I can help with advice. Absolutely. And I encourage people to book, that first 15 minutes, because I do give people 15 minutes of my time to have a quick assessment of what they want to do. And then I show them how they can work with me. But for me, if you just hit connect and I don't know you, I'm not accepting your connection.
Right.
I need to know that you serious about your career, because that's what I do in the world. My work is about career transition and growth. And so I know people who are serious about it, they take those extra steps, they go that extra mile. And then I know they're probably going to be a half decent client to work with, because the ones who don't, they become very difficult people to work with. And I've let the stress of my life go, right? I did that in menopause. I'm not about to take on any more stress. So I don't take on very difficult, that's why I also, I always give people 15 minutes of my time, partly so they can see how I work, partly so I can get a feel for what they're really wanting to do, but also because I'm screening them.
Absolutely.
If they are difficult people who aren't going to be a partner with me in the journey, I don't take them on as clients.
So it does make sense to have your own little window to scan somebody while you're thinking that somebody's scanning you. That's another nugget.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. Well, it's the very same tip I give for people who go for interviews. I'm like, don't ever walk into an interview thinking that you have to bend only to what the company is. You are interviewing the company as much as they interview you. If you want a successful career, you need to know that they're the right company.
Absolutely.
So you've got to ask a couple. I always give people a few questions to ask. Different questions depend on the role. I said, you ask these 2 questions at the end and you'll be able to tell if they are going to support you as an employee or if they're only just about you giving to them. Because if you want career success, it has to be a 2-way street.
Yes. And then now the last question about this topic about balancing the career in the stage of life that we are in. This unique perspective that you have about career transitions and being able to balance it. What are your practical lessons or maybe one lesson that you'd like to share about, where you are and what you'd not like to change the way you work now?
So I say to people, and this is me, and this is advice for me that I give myself a lot of the time, but also for my people that are growing in their careers and going to the next level, get very good at knowing what to say no to. Because your no is sometimes more important than your yes. You have to know where the boundary is. So for me, for example, I have aging parents. They have challenging health issues. I don't work on a Fridays anymore because Fridays is when I go and have time with my parents. Now, I've had people try to persuade me many which ways, right? Because they go, oh, but I really need the help and I've got to have the interview coaching. No, I've chosen that this is my day for my parents. This is my day for my well-being. Fridays is when I will go and get my pampering. If I'm going to go and get a massage, it's going to happen on a Friday. I'm going to go see my parents. I'm going to go play cards with my parents. I'm going to go on the beach with my parents. I'm going to walk the dog, all of these things. And I don't compromise on that. You have to figure out what your boundary is fairly quickly. And even in the job, if you're going to be successful in career, you don't want to be the person that's working 10, 12-hour days. That is not a luxurious, balanced life, right? That is you setting yourself on a path for burnout. And so you can get good at saying no. It's sometimes more important than all the yeses you say to. You don't have to participate in everything. We don't have to attend all the functions and all the parties and all the, sometimes it's good to say thank you for the invitation or thank you for the opportunity, but it's not right for me at this time. I use that phrase a lot. Mm-hmm. It's not right for me at this time. Right. Keep the door open. Don't be mean-spirited about your no. Always, don't go burning bridges, but make sure you communicate it in a way that's empowering. And one of the best ways is to thank people for the invitation, thank them for the opportunity, thank them, and then decline.
Very true, very true. Because often when we are trying to find a career change, especially at that time, any opportunity and every opportunity, every interview seems like a good one. And then
yes.
When you are sitting in that interview, you're sometimes thinking, why the hell even I'm here? I can't even be here right now in this interview. Talk about working here is a very different thing altogether. But
yes.
But during the career transitions, our mind starts to work differently, and we tend to accept sometimes. So this is a very important thing.
Yes.
To be assertive politely.
Yeah, politely assertive, because that's the thing. You also will instill confidence in the interviewer. Mm-hmm. Most interviewers don't want people that are pushovers, because what they know if you're a pushover is that you don't know how to lead.
Right.
You're gonna show them very quickly. If you're someone that's a pushover in an interview, mm-hmm. you're going to very clearly demonstrate to that interviewer that you are not the person that can lead others.
Very true.
And so always think about it. But we always mind your manners. It's really simple. Mind your manners when you're communicating. So always communicate professionally, communicate gently, communicate with empathy, but be assertive with your no. Mm-hmm.
Lovely.
Be assertive with your no.
Very, very true. So what is the one thing that excites you these days, Wendy, in your work?
So the work that I enjoy the most, and I do different work. So as I said, I'm a business copywriter for small businesses. I write resumes, LinkedIn, cover letters for careerists. I coach people in various strategies and networking and LinkedIn strategies. But the work I love the most is the interview coaching. And the reason I love it the most is because I can see the transformation happen very quickly. So people will sometimes come to me, they're nervous. They don't know how to articulate an answer in an interview. When we practice the first 2 or 3 questions, they're talking for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And then I start to train them in how to speak succinctly. And my thing is, if you're talking for 2.5 minutes, if you're talking beyond that, you're talking too long. So now we start training how to peel back the answer, how to give the most pertinent information in the strongest, shortest possible way. And by the time they've done 3 or 4 sessions with me, the confidence level, I'm like watching it happen in the space of a week. And then they go and they interview and they land the jobs. And that for me that is gold. That is gold because I know what the person was like when they came to me.
Mm-hmm.
a week ago, because I do a lot of my interview coaching over a period of a week, 3 sessions or 4 sessions within a week, because most people only get a week to get ready for an interview. They get told, you got an interview next Tuesday. So now they've got to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
But I see that transformation and I love it. I love watching it in front of my eyes. So that's the part of my work I love the most. And it's also the final piece to land the job. If you've got great documents and a great LinkedIn and a great cover letter, but you can't interview properly, you are not going to get the job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the final piece before that decision is made. So I really love that part of it.
Right, right. Well, lovely talking to you, Wendy, today. It's just been
It's been wonderful.
wonderful talking to you, discussing and having so many nuggets for all my audiences, and amazing pieces of things that we have discussed for the menopausal women as well. It's
Yes.
lovely to have you over, and hopefully we'll have a couple of more sessions.
Oh,
Um,
I'd love to. Absolutely.
yes, absolutely. So thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure.
And this one's for my viewers. If you are looking for guidance on surviving menopause while you're changing careers, you have got today proven strategies for navigating that midlife career challenges with ease, a little bit of ease. And Wendy is a brilliant coach that can help you unlock your true potential. So keep watching Luxury Unplugged for more such personal transformation and self improvement tips. See you soon in the next video.